Discover the amazing truth reveals an unexpected transformation. Jack McCallister stood at the edge of his parched ranch, the Texas sun casting long shadows across the unforgiving land. He could feel the weight of generations pressing down on him, a legacy built on grit and determination now slipping through his fingers like sand. The drought was relentless, every shriveled blade of grass a bitter reminder of what had once thrived. As he took a deep, shuddering breath, doubt gnawed at him. Was this the end of everything his family had worked for? He scanned the horizon, searching for solace amidst the barren fields, but all he found was a churning internal storm, a tempest of fear and despair. "Dad, I'm moving to the city." Tyler's words rang in his ears, a thunderclap that reverberated through his existence. Jack felt his heart race, a pulsing reminder of the distance growing between them. Tyler, his ambitious son, had always possessed a spark of determination, but this was more than restless ambition. It felt like betrayal. Abandoning the ranch? Jack's mind whirled, the shame of failure washing over him. Was he not enough of a father? Had he not instilled loyalty in Tyler's heart? His vision blurred as he remembered the countless hours spent under the sun, teaching his son the ropes of this daunting life. "You can't just leave the land," he had shouted, each word a plea filled with anguish. But Tyler was resolute, his dreams far from the parched earth and weary cattle. As the days crawled by, Jack wrestled with the pain. Would Tyler chasing wealth tarnish everything he had built? Or was it the natural order of things, a new era demanding change? The two men, once joined in purpose, now stood divided. Tyler eyeing the corporate ladder, while Jack clung to an agricultural heritage that felt increasingly obsolete. The air was thick with unspoken words, and every shared moment was laced with tension. How could they bridge this widening chasm? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Desperation clawed at Jack as he rummaged through the attic of the old barn, where years of dust and memories lingered like ghosts. He unearthed his father's journal, its pages yellowed with time, yet pulsating with knowledge. Forgotten techniques, innovative practices. Could these be the lifeline his ranch needed? Hope flickered within him, but so did trepidation. What if adopting these new ideas meant betraying the traditions he had held dear? He battled with himself, this inner turmoil consuming his thoughts like wildfires on a hot summer day. That evening, beneath the vast starlit sky draping their ranch, the air crackled with unspoken fear. Jack's chest tightened as he prepared to confront Tyler anew about the journal's secrets, a last-ditch effort to mend a rift. But just then, the sharp trill of Tyler's phone filled the silence, a corporate call that could pivot his life in an entirely new direction. The tension was palpable, a moment pregnant with choice, as father and son stood on the precipice of an uncertain future, their legacies entwined yet fragile. Would they salvage their bond, or were they destined to drift apart forever? The night deepened, and with it, the questions lingered, haunting the space between them as they faced the darkness ahead. The night air was still, thick with unresolved tension as Jack turned away from Tyler's absorbed conversation. He felt the chill of uncertainty curling around his heart, gnawing at the remnants of hope that flickered like the distant stars above. The journal lay open on the dusty table beside him, its pages fluttering softly in the warm breeze, a siren call to a different future. Jack searched his memory for the hardships told within those pages, his father's hints of resilience woven through detailed accounts of crop rotations, water conservation methods, and soil management techniques. Each entry felt like a forgotten hymn of strength, a potential guide to navigate the tempest of his current existence. The ranch was on the brink, Without change, it would be nothing more than a graveyard of dreams buried under the harsh Texas sun. But change can be both a harbor and a tempest, he mused. Would deviating from tradition mean losing the essence of who he was? Clenching his fists, Jack felt the stirrings of determination emerging from beneath the layers of doubt. He yearned for understanding, not just from Tyler, but within himself. What if innovation didn't erase his past, but rather built upon it? As dawn broke, painting the horizon in hues of hope, he made a decision. Jack would experiment with one of the innovative practices detailed in the journal. It was a gamble, a plunge into uncharted waters that asked for everything he had. The old way had brought him here, but perhaps it was time for the next chapter of the ranch's story to unfold. Gathering his tools, Jack ventured into the arid pastures. Thoughts of his father flickered like light, his voice echoing the harsh lessons of dedication and effort. Instead of bending to uncertainty, Jack took stock of the soil, its parched surface cracked yet alive, waiting for a chance to thrive. Each shovel dug deep put him in touch with the land, and with it an undeniable urge surged through him, a wish to make this ranch not just a home, but a sanctuary for growth, for both soil and spirit. With every beat of his heart, he planned a new approach to irrigation, one fueled by the hope embedded within the journal's pages. Jack couldn't avoid Tyler's imminent departure, and as he worked, he ruminated on his son's journey. With every day that passed, he could see Tyler was not only chasing riches, but searching for purpose. The realization roared within him. The quest to innovate wasn't only about cattle or crops, it was about legacy. And perhaps Tyler's ambition was a path they could share. As the sun began to set, bathing the ranch in a golden glow, Jack paused, sweat glistening on his brow. He could feel the ground beneath his feet, both a weight and a blessing. The bond with Tyler seemed to pulse through the air, a line that was strained yet unbroken. This new venture had the potential to be the bridge they both needed. Maybe it would pull them back together, or perhaps it would start a new chapter entirely. Jack's phone buzzed, pulling him out of his thoughts. It was Tyler sending a message. "Can we talk?" The urgency was palpable, igniting a flame of anxiety deep in his gut. He knew this was the moment where decision and action would collide. Would he embrace vulnerability, extend a hand, and welcome his son's ambitions? Or would fear hold him back once more, threatening to fracture their already fragile bond? He took a deep breath, his heart racing. The time had come to face the choices that lay before him. The future was murky, but the path held promise and the possibility of transformation. Jack knew whatever came next would not only define him as a rancher, but also as a father. The stage was set. What would he choose? Jack's breath caught in his throat as he stared at the screen, the words blinking back at him like a challenge. Thoughts of his father's legacy mingled with fears about his own failures. It was a whirlwind of emotion. Taking one last look at the sun, now dipping behind the horizon, he steeled himself for the conversation with Tyler, uncertain yet determined. He stepped inside the house, each creaking floorboard beneath his feet mirroring the uncertainty of his heart. The weight of change felt heavier indoors, where memories lingered more vividly. He needed to offer Tyler something new, a way to honor the past while forging an uncertain future. Settling down at the table, Jack thumbed through the journal, fingers tracing the lines that spoke of commitment and perseverance. The date on one entry caught his eye, a drought year not too dissimilar from now. His father had written about innovative irrigation techniques that kept the ranch alive then. As he read, a realization dawned. If he could embrace these lessons, perhaps he could inspire Tyler to view the ranch's future with the same reverence he had for its past. A knock sounded at the door, sharp and urgent. Jack's heart raced again. He stood up, straightened his shirt, and opened the door to Tyler. The younger man's expression held a mix of apprehension and, "Hey," Tyler began, his voice edged with nervous energy. "I wanted to talk about the ranch." Jack nodded, motioning for him to sit. The weight of their previous argument lingered, echoing in the silence that fell between them as they both took their seats. "I know things have been tense," Jack broke the silence. "I'm trying to find a way to change. I've been looking into some new techniques, ways to improve our irrigation, to really transform this place." Tyler's eyebrows furrowed with curiosity, but behind that lay apprehension. "Isn't that what you've always said? This is how we do things. You used to resist change, Dad." Jack inhaled sharply, his gut twisting at the truth of Tyler's words. "And I've been wrong, but I'm ready to evolve, to adapt. I want to make sure this ranch means something to us both, to hand it over to you." "But that's just it," Tyler interjected, frustration bubbling beneath the surface. "You're not seeing it. This isn't about handing over anything. It's about what I want to do with it." Jack's heart sank, but he couldn't back down. "You want to chase fortunes, but look around. This place has history, Tyler. It's about so much more than money. It's about legacy." The words hung in the air, heavy and challenging. Tyler opened his mouth as if to argue, but instead, his eyes softened, and something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that this was an inflection point. Jack could feel the magnetic pull of unresolved ambitions and shared desires surfacing. "I don't want to lose this place," Tyler finally said, this time quieter. "Then let's figure it out together," Jack pleaded. "What if we combine the old with the new, serve tradition while innovating? I'd just started experimenting with some of these techniques." Jack's mind raced, already formulating a plan. If they could collaborate, bridging their perspectives might yield something greater, a ranch that thrived on both history and innovation, something Tyler could be proud to carry forward. For the first time, Jack saw a flicker of hope in Tyler's eyes. Could this be their path toward reconciliation? But before he could voice his thoughts, Tyler's phone buzzed, an incoming alert slicing through the moment. Tyler pulled it out, and his face fell. "It's the investors. They want an answer today, whether I'll commit." Jack's heart sank at the tension palpable in the air. This was not just a hurdle. It felt like a rift that might separate them for good. The urgency was alive, crackling, and tangible. If he didn't act now, they might miss this chance entirely. "Tyler, think about it," he urged. "You have a choice to make. Do we follow this dream together, or do we go our separate ways?" The crossroads lay before them, each path laden with uncertainty. Would they dare to take this leap together, or would the pressure of ambition pull them apart? Jack could feel the stakes rising, his heart pounding at the thought that everything he hoped for hung in the balance. "Let's decide right now," he said, intensity surging in his voice. The moment had come to not just choose for himself, but for both father and son. What awaited them on the other side of this decision? Jack sat across from Tyler, the gravity of the moment heavy in the air. The ranch now felt like a battlefield, not merely of land, but of ideas, of futures hanging delicately in the balance. He sensed Tyler's internal struggle, a whirlwind of ambition and uncertainty played across the younger man's face. Jack leaned in, desperate to bridge the gap, to lay down whatever personal pride stood in the way. "Tyler," he said softly, his voice steadying as he focused on his son's eyes, "this is more than just about the money. It's about what we can create together, honoring what's come before while we challenge what's expected of us now." Tyler hesitated, the flicker of doubt visible in his brow. He was clearly torn, pulling between the traditional values ingrained by his father and the modern opportunities presented by looming investors. Jack remembered the weight of his own decisions, how fear could imprison someone, paralyzing them from forging a new path. It was time to show Tyler that true strength lay in adaptability, in the ability to embrace change without losing sight of one's origins. "Let's brainstorm. What if we showcase the ranch's strengths?" Jack proposed. "I've been reading about sustainable farming practices. We could bring in more efficient water usage techniques and attract eco-conscious buyers. It wouldn't just save costs. It could tell a story, attract attention, and bring people back to our roots." A flicker of intrigue sparked in Tyler's eyes. Jack pressed on, sensing an opening. We respect the past while planting our feet in the future. That's how we honor Granddad, by moving forward, not retreating to old ways just because they're safe. Tyler's fingers drummed anxiously on the table, his phone still buzzing lightly against the hardwood. He glanced down at the screen periodically, the pressure of investors looming heavy. He was no longer just a young man burdened by his father's legacy. He was now a decision-maker in a landscape that demanded growth and innovation. "I can't just turn them down, Dad," Tyler murmured, the frustration creeping back. "These investors, they could solve so many of our problems." Jack swallowed hard, emotion swelling inside him. This was it, the moment when Tyler's path could fork in another direction. There was so much unsaid between them, so much history heavy on their shoulders. But at what cost, Tyler? What you do today will ripple for generations. I don't want you to sacrifice this place for fleeting gains. Tyler took a deep breath, the struggle evident. Jack's heart raced. Did Tyler see it yet? Could he feel the legacy waiting to be honored? Quietly, Jack added, "This isn't just about me passing something down. It's about you becoming the steward of this ranch, shaping it with your vision. But what happens if you chase money and burn out from regret?" "Maybe I can do both," Tyler said suddenly, determination hardening his voice. "What if I invested the money into something sustainable? We could blend old and new, add more value to the ranch. We could merge tradition with innovation, and I could lead that charge." Jack's heart lifted at the thought. That's the spirit. We can create programs that not only preserve the ranch, but draw people in, teach them our methods, and show them the beauty of this life. It could be like a retreat. With the investors on board, we could redefine what it means to run this ranch. Tyler's brow knitted together now, his mind working at the speed of light. Jack felt the tide shift within him, a budding excitement birthed from their shared vision. There lay a potential meld of past and present, power woven through the fabric of the land they both loved. But as Tyler stood, his phone buzzing incessantly, uncertainty crept back in. He turned away, glancing out the window at the sprawling ranch. "I still have to make a decision today," he said, voice low. Jack's heart sank anew, a knot of anxiety tightening in his gut. "I can't let you just give in," he insisted, desperate air escaping. "We have to protect what matters." "I know," Tyler replied, turning back to meet his father's gaze, determination shining through. "But can we really redefine everything before I answer?" The question hung between them, a tangible thread of possibility woven through the air. Jack realized that he couldn't shield Tyler from making tough choices as he carved his path. "Then I'll wait with you," Jack declared, resignation mingling with a flicker of hope. "Let's navigate this together. We'll figure out what it means to lead our legacy." As Tyler nodded, a new sense of purpose enveloped them both. But with the impending decision looming like a storm cloud, Jack pondered whether their collaboration would spawn greater clarity or an insurmountable divide. Where would this journey truly lead them, and would they have the courage to stand united in the aftermath? The realization struck Jack. This was only the beginning of their most crucial challenge yet. Tyler stood by the window, the impending weight of his decision pressing down on him like the leaden clouds outside. He shifted his gaze from the sprawling ranch to Jack's intense expression, a mingling of resolve and fear reflected in the lines on his father's face. The old oak trees shivered under a sudden gust of wind, reminding Tyler of the old adage, "The strongest trees bend with the storm." "Dad," Tyler began, swallowing as he tried to find the words, "what if I can't merge everything perfectly? What if I choose the wrong path?" The clenched fists on the ledge betrayed his anxiety, and for a fleeting moment he felt that the joy, uncertainty, all fused together into one anger. "Dad," Tyler began, swallowing as he tried to find the words, what if I can't merge everything perfectly? What if I choose the wrong path?" The clenched fists on the ledge betrayed his anxiety, and for a fleeting moment, he felt that the joy, uncertainty, all fused together into one anger. "Dad," Tyler began, swallowing as he tried to find the words. What if I can't merge everything perfectly? What if I choose the wrong path?" The clenched fists on the ledge betrayed his anxiety, and for a fleeting moment, he felt that the joy, uncertainty, all fused together into one anger. "Dad," Tyler began, swallowing as he tried to find the words. What if I can't merge everything perfectly? What if I choose the wrong path?" The clenched fists on the ledge betrayed his anxiety, and for a fleeting moment, he felt that the joy, uncertainty, all fused together into one anger. "Dad," Tyler began, swallowing as he tried to find the words. What if I can't merge everything perfectly? What if I choose the wrong path?" The clenched fists on the ledge betrayed his anxiety, and for a fleeting moment, he felt that the joy, uncertainty, swirling storm of doubt began to consume him again. Jack stepped closer, his presence a stabilizing force. "Making mistakes is part of growth, son, but learning from those missteps is what defines us." A gentle firmness seeped into his tone. "You have to be willing to take risks, to venture outside what feels comfortable." The thought echoed in Tyler's mind, a frame of truth amid the chaos. Was he willing to embrace uncertainty, knowing it might lead to unforeseen consequences? The ranch had been a steadfast entity, but perhaps it too needed a shakeup to thrive. Could he be the agent of that change, the one to push the ranch into a new era? "What if we started small?" Tyler speculated, a hint of enthusiasm rising. "Maybe we could implement one sustainable practice at a time, even if the investors want us to expand rapidly. That way, we respect what we have while allowing for growth." Jack nodded, his eyes lighting up. "That's a brilliant idea, Tyler. Introduce changes that showcase success without overwhelming ourselves. We can gather feedback from the community, build a network that believes in our vision. It could even garner more investors who want to back responsible practices." The conversation shifted something palpable within Tyler, stirring both fear and hope. He wanted to honor the traditions that Jack had instilled in him, but adapt them to a world that was evolving too quickly to ignore. He took a deep breath, consciously adopting a steadier posture. "What if I focused on our soil management first? I've studied some regenerative practices, and they seem promising. They can improve yield and sustainability." The realization hit. He was igniting a spark of purpose, a realization of his own potential that had previously felt dormant. "Yes," Jack exclaimed, his voice laced with pride. "That's the kind of initiative we need. Start with what you know, what you're passionate about. This can be your identity, something that represents you as the next steward of this land." Tyler felt a wave of warmth at his father's words, a grounding reassurance that he wasn't merely following tradition for the sake of loyalty. He was carving out a path that felt authentic, tailored to his strengths and competencies. The resonance of that thought entwined with the budding excitement in his veins. But then, a sudden sense of despair snuck back in, flooding his mind. "But how do I face the investors with this? They want sweeping changes, not gradual adjustments. I fear they'll find my ideas too backward." "Show them the potential of what you can build over time," Jack responded. "You may have to stand your ground. It won't be easy, but persistence wins. You'll be evolving their expectations, not just delivering what they want. Your vision can lead them into the future, one step at a time." The imagery played in Tyler's mind, the prospect of him, alongside investors, making a compelling case backed by a foundation of sustainable practices. His heart pounded. He could feel the urgency to act. "I'll prepare something, a presentation that outlines my plan clearly, showing the benefits of moving incrementally," he announced, a newfound determination pulsing within him. Jack smiled, but the gleam of pride shifted to concern. "Remember to stay true to what this ranch represents. If you communicate with passion and conviction, they will see your vision as a viable investment for their future." As Tyler stepped away from the window, his thoughts raced. He no longer felt trapped within a duality of choices. Instead, he sensed the possibilities blossoming outward, like a wildflower breaking through the earth. Yet, deep inside, doubt whispered. Could he really face the encroaching pressures of the investors? Would they understand the legacy he intended to safeguard while ushering the ranch into a new era? As they stepped toward the door, ready to seek the momentum of change, the phone buzzed again. In that moment, Tyler's mind snapped back to the harsh reality awaiting him. "Let's go, Ty," Jack urged gently, sensing both the excitement and trepidation coursing through his son. The two headed toward the meeting that would test everything Tyler was beginning to believe about himself, his capabilities, and his vision for the ranch. The future hung in the balance, and for the first time, he felt poised to seize it. But just how far was he willing to go to protect his dreams? In the quiet aftermath of their exchange, Tyler knew that this was only the beginning, and with stakes at an all-time high, the real confrontation with his fears looming ever closer. Tyler took a seat at the conference table, his pulse quickening as he surveyed the polished faces of the investors before him. Each expression seemed embedded with skepticism and expectation, a jarring contrast to the warmth he had felt in his father's office. As he prepared to unveil his vision, he was facing not just their scrutiny, but his own burgeoning self-doubt. The room was thick with tension, as if the air itself pressed down on him. They were high-stakes players, seasoned in the realm of finance and agriculture. Would they see the potential in his incremental approach, or would they dismiss it as naive idealism? Taking a deep breath, he activated the projector, allowing the images of the ranch to fill the screen. He meticulously crafted his presentation to encapsulate not just facts and figures, but also the heart behind his vision. "What we have here," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "is an opportunity to redefine modern farming while preserving a legacy." He spoke of soil health, water conservation, and the importance of community relationships, weaving his personal commitment with the ranch's heritage. Each word flowed with the passion he had unearthed during his talks with Jack. He visualized their conversations fueling his resolve, driving him to stand firm in his beliefs. He noticed a few skeptical glances drifting openly, especially from the lead investor, a sharply dressed man with a dismissive tilt of his head. Tyler's gut tightened. Was he losing them already? He pushed through the uneasy feeling, switching slides to showcase methods he'd studied: crop rotation, cover cropping, and the transformative power of regenerative practices. But change doesn't happen overnight. It requires commitment and iterative learning. His voice crackled slightly, but he pressed on, leaning into his conviction. By integrating these practices gradually, we will increase yield over time while developing a robust model that can sustain future generations. The next moment felt pivotal. The investor's expression soured as he leaned forward, a glint of condescension in his gaze. "All of this sounds good in theory, Tyler, but how do we justify this to shareholders expecting quick returns? Your approach seems archaic." Tyler felt his heart drop. And yet, it was in that moment that a flicker of defiance ignited within him. "I'd choose to see it differently. The archaic models led to our current crisis: depleted soil, overuse of chemicals, and a disconnect from nature. Yet, evolution has always sparked from thinking that may have been labeled as foolish." A fragile silence hung in the room. The words felt like a tightrope walk, a risk that could either collapse or catapult him forward. He sensed the weight of their expectations shifting. It was just enough momentum for him to pivot further. Imagine transforming the ranch into a model for sustainability that attracts new investments, not only from traditional agricultural investors, but also from environmentally conscious firms seeking a legacy from their investments. His excitement built as he spoke, envisioning how the ranch could become a beacon for responsible practices. The tension shifted slightly. One of the investors frowned thoughtfully, while Jack's unwavering gaze silently urged him on. Tyler realized he needed to emphasize not just the how, but the why. He wanted them to understand that this wasn't just about profits, it was about stewardship and responsibility. The meeting progressed. Questions came, some harsh, others thoughtful, but Tyler reveled in the challenge. Each inquiry sharpened his resolve, compelling him to dig deeper into his reservoir of knowledge. He grappled with data, shared anecdotes from local farmers who had successfully transitioned, and spoke passionately about the moral implications of their choices. Minutes felt like hours, but in his heart, he began to feel something shift again. The cracks of doubt, which once threatened to fracture his determination, now felt like expansions of possibility. Eventually, the sharp-dressed investor offered a half-smile. "Okay, Tyler, you've shown us that it's possible, but it's going to take more than just a plan. It's going to require bold action and faith." The conclusion was a bittersweet relief for him. An opening had emerged, and that meant he had managed to engage their interest. But he also knew this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. How much was he willing to sacrifice to see his vision brought to life? Would he risk the ranch's short-term security for long-term sustainability? Leaving the meeting, exhilaration coursed through Tyler, yet the unease returned to the surface. Pushing against the doubts was one level of courage, but committing to the long game revealed deeper uncertainties about his capabilities and the family legacy. As they exited the building, Jack looked at him with a proud grin, tinged with fatherly concern. "You held your ground. That's no small feat." Tyler nodded, but his mind swirled with self-doubt as they stepped into the fading light of the evening. How deep did his convictions truly run, or had he bitten off more than he could chew? The commitment to action weighed heavily as they climbed into the truck. One question loomed larger than all the others. What if he faltered in the face of challenges yet to come? As the truck navigated the winding roads back to the ranch, Tyler stared out at the dimming horizon, the golden hues fading into a deep purple twilight. Each mile felt like an index of his internal unrest. He replayed the meeting in his head, hoping to recapture that fleeting spark of defiance he'd felt when challenged. Yet doubt clung to him like a shadow, whispering reminders of the risks ahead. Jack's voice pulled him from his thoughts. "What's next, Tyler? You know those investors expect results, and quickly." He had an encouraging tone, but Tyler perceived the undercurrent of concern woven within his words. "I know," he replied, forcing his voice to steady. The weight of his intention loomed larger. "Now it's about translating this idea into action. I need to develop a concrete plan to implement our goals, show them it's not just talk." Jack nodded, but the furrow in his brow deepened. "You have to be realistic, son. The ranch won't operate itself on good intentions alone. We need a strategy, resources, and maybe even to make sacrifices." Sacrifices. The word hung in the air, a constant reminder of everything he might lose if things didn't go as planned. Could he face the possibility of endangered family heirlooms, cherished traditions? It was one thing to battle for change. It was another to question the very foundation of his upbringing. That night, he sat alone in the quiet of his room, surrounded by remnants of his family's legacy. The aged photographs, trophies showcasing generations of ranching, and awards that echoed his father's accomplishments. They were testament to what hard work and tradition could yield, but they also suffocated him with expectation. How much of himself was he willing to compromise for an abstract vision? He opened his laptop and began to sketch out what a practical plan might look like. Thoughts raced. Collaboration with local agricultural experts, pilot programs to implement sustainable practices on a small scale, potential partnerships with environmentally conscious firms. As ideas flowed, however, skepticism crept back in, gnawing at his resolve. What if he wasn't cut out for this? What if he couldn't deliver the results they demanded? Weeks slipped by, filled with late nights and early mornings, as he consulted with farmers, researched innovative methods, and built a framework. He spoke with members of the local Chamber of Commerce, peering through their eyes to understand the economic landscape and market demands. Each conversation planted seeds of understanding but yielded new concerns. Could he truly juggle the farming methods while steering clear of financial ruin? It was soon clear that complacency wasn't an option. Inaction would not just jeopardize his chance at innovation, it would also tarnish what his family had built over decades. Not only were pressing questions emerging from within, but external pressures loomed as well. Distrust from investors, the expectation of immediate revenue, and growing tensions within the agriculture community resistant to new methodologies. As he wrestled with these challenges, something unexpected began to surface. The more he learned, the more he felt a sense of empowerment blooming. Information transformed doubt into capability. Each time he faced a question or objection, a deeper understanding anchored his convictions. This wasn't just about sustainability, it was about evolving into a better steward of the land, bridging his family's heritage with the future. Tyler found himself immersed in discussions with other young ranchers, all striving for change. A sense of camaraderie emerged, igniting his passion further. Each voice added a layer to his own ambitions, stitching together a network bolstered by shared dreams. It became clear he wasn't alone in this struggle. Yet the nagging concern returned. How many of these relationships could withstand the challenges ahead? The time had come to face the final hurdle before implementation. The resistance from old-school ranchers who claimed his strategies undermined centuries of traditional methods. As the sun began to rise over the expansive fields, Tyler realized the stakes were higher than he had imagined. He was about to confront something more significant than mere investor skepticism. He would have to stand before the community and the old guard, risking not just their judgment, but perhaps their wrath. Would he hold firm in the face of potential backlash, or would he retreat into safety, sacrificing growth for comfort? The fork in the road approached, and in that moment, he understood the need for boldness and transparency. But could he muster what it truly took to lead? Was he equipped to face the resistance that awaited him? As he gathered his notes for the upcoming meeting with the local ranching community, breath caught in his throat. The identification of his next step pulsated fiercely in his mind. The time had come to confront not only external obstacles, but to unearth the depths of his own courage. The day of the meeting arrived, with the sun hanging low, casting a golden light over the fields. Tyler stood at the ranch's entry, feeling the ground solid beneath his boots as he took a deep breath. The familiar sense of the earth and hay surrounded him, each inhalation steeped in nostalgia, yet tainted with uncertainty. He had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, but the weight of the expectations loomed larger than he anticipated. He arrived at the community hall, a modest structure that had seen countless discussions and confrontations over the years. Inside, he could already sense the palpable tension. The seasoned ranchers, weathered by years of working against nature's whims, filled the room. Their skeptical eyes surveyed him, an outsider of sorts, a young man boldly challenging the traditions they held dear. Tyler's pulse quickened as he took his place at the front, the wooden podium feeling alien yet familiar. He began with an anecdote about his late father and the love for the land they had shared. It was a small bridge he hoped would remind them of their common roots, of the foundation from which they all stemmed. But as he delved into the heart of his presentation, the progressive methodologies, sustainable practices, and potential partnerships, he could see their faces shift from curiosity to disapproval. "Change takes time," one of the older ranchers interjected, his voice thick with authority. "We've managed for generations just fine. Why fix what isn't broken?" Tyler felt the old familiar knot of doubt tug at his stomach. He could either retreat, a safe haven from their reproach, or confront the challenge head-on. Gathering his thoughts, he decided to confront the question directly. Because the world is changing, and if we don't adapt, we risk losing more than just our livelihoods. The words hung in the air, a fragile thread bridging his urgency with their apprehensions. He spent the next hour answering questions, addressing objections, all while feeling the weight of their skepticism. Every rebuttal about practicality led to deeper exploration of the truths that anchored his proposals. He recalled statistics, referenced farmer success stories, offered evidence of the benefits that awaited them. Yet, every time he made a point, he could sense their resistance solidifying, fortified by years of tradition that told them change meant upheaval, instability. Tyler began to realize that it wasn't just knowledge he needed to provide. He needed to connect on a deeper level, to demonstrate that he understood their fears. "So, you want us to trust these new methods?" another rancher challenged. "But what guarantees can you offer that we won't lose everything we've built?" His heart raced. He was standing at the precipice of a crucial moment, the impact of which would echo for generations. Tyler took a step forward, searching their faces, and then, with all the conviction he could muster, he answered, "The only guarantee I can offer is my personal commitment to this ranch and to you all, as partners. I understand that what's at stake is not just land, it's your heritage. That is something I do not take lightly." A momentary silence followed, the air thick with contemplation. They were wrestling with something deeper than just his proposal. It was an existential fight against the very winds of change he proposed to embrace. Then, a hand shot up in the back of the room. It was one of the younger ranchers he'd met previously. His brow furrowed. "Can we really afford to ignore the advancements that the world is making?" The question sparked murmurings around the room. It was a subtle shift, but one that brought a flicker of hope. Tyler felt the tension start to crack. The others began to speak up, sharing their own concerns, but also their aspirations. The atmosphere shifted from opposition to discussion. As the debate continued, he found himself not just defending his vision, but discovering new insights born from their experiences. An unexpected collaboration began to flow. As Tyler engaged in the exchange, he realized he was no longer just a representative of change. He was part of a community navigating uncertainty together. When the meeting adjourned, though unresolved in many respects, a sense of progress had taken root. Yet as he packed his notes and stepped outside, the weight of what lay ahead crashed back over him. Could this fragile progress sustain itself amidst persistent resistance? The dialogue had started, but the challenges he faced were far from over. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting shadows that stretched across the land, he knew the real test of courage still awaited. If he was to lead through adversity, he had to confront not only the community's doubts, but also the whispers of uncertainty within himself. Could he forge ahead despite the overwhelming odds? Tyler felt a moment of self-doubt creeping in, but there was no turning back now. An unquenchable fire was igniting within him, the need to persist intensifying as he faced the next chapter of his journey. What would it take to turn growing skepticism into unwavering belief? With a sense of urgency, Tyler set off toward home, ready to dive deep into his thoughts and prepare for the next challenge that was sure to come. What awaited him would demand more than just resolve. It would require a transformation he could scarcely imagine. Driven by determination, Tyler's mind raced as he navigated the winding path back to the ranch. The meeting stirred thoughts that cascaded through his consciousness, each revealing layers of complexity he needed to address. He could feel the tension of uncertainty draping over him like a heavy cloak, wrapping tighter with each step as he replayed the words of the ranchers in his head. Their doubts echoed, not just as objections, but almost as accusations against his ambition. He reached the weathered wooden door of the barn, a familiar gateway to both safety and solitude. Inside, the scent of aged hay and leather mingled in the air, inviting him into a space that had been a sanctuary in times of turmoil. Yet tonight, it felt constricting. He was no longer just a son of the ranch. He bore the weight of his father's legacy and the expectations of a generation reluctant to embrace change. Sometimes being a leader means carrying more than just your own hopes, he murmured to himself, an admission of the burden he felt pressing down. He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes, searching for clarity amid the internal chaos. What if the solution lay not solely in convincing the ranchers with facts, but in forging a bond, an authentic connection that resonated with their fears and aspirations? His father had often spoken of understanding the land and its people as an inseparable task. Perhaps it was time to reevaluate that principle. The more he thought, the more he felt compelled to reach out to them as colleagues rather than adversaries. He needed to break down the barriers of skepticism and nurture the space for understanding. Tyler pulled out his notebook, its pages filled with rough sketches and notes from the meeting, and began jotting down ideas aimed at personalized farming workshops. Engaging directly with their concerns could foster an environment where dialogue flourished. Hours slipped away as he sketched plans that combined traditional approaches with innovative methods. In integrating the old ways with new practices, he hoped to create a bridge that would allow the ranchers to see themselves in this fresh vision. It was about building partnerships, not imposing changes. Roused by his own enthusiasm, he stood abruptly. He needed to act. He would invite fellow ranchers to participate in a series of informal gatherings where they could share experiences and explore possibilities together. A warmth surged through him, igniting a flicker of confidence he had thought extinguished in the face of their resistance. After taking the first steps to organize his thoughts, he decided he wouldn't let this turn in momentum fade. It was crucial that he approach them not just with solutions, but with respect for their experiences. Could there be a more genuine pathway forward? This was not merely about their livelihood, but also about preserving their identities as ranchers and custodians of the land. Yet, as excitement coursed through him, a darker shadow loomed in the recesses of his mind. Yes, he was making plans, but was he ready to face the internal conflict that still simmered beneath the surface? What if the ranchers reject even his outreach efforts? Would that render his attempts futile? As the weight settled in, a sense of urgency struck. This was not merely about whether they accepted his ideas. It was about his own growth and evolution as a leader. Could he endure the potential failure and still find strength? Tyler stepped outside, the cool evening air brushing against his skin, his resolve solidifying as he wondered how to best position the ranch amidst these uncharted waters of change. With each breath, he understood the enormity of what lay ahead. This was only the beginning, and the road to acceptance would not be paved without its own hardships. What uncharted territories would he have to navigate, both in the landscape of the ranch and within himself, as he took steps towards an uncertain future? With the promise of dawn, a new challenge loomed just beyond the horizon. As dawn's golden light flooded the ranch, casting a warm glow across the land, Tyler felt a palpable shift within him. The weight of uncertainty began to lift, revealing a newfound clarity. Today would mark a pivotal moment in his journey, a conscious embrace of the legacy that had shaped him, while daring to pioneer a path forward. With a sense of purpose, he gathered the notes he had created over the past week, ideas that blurred the lines between innovation and tradition. He decided to invite the ranchers for an open conversation in the barn, a space familiar yet charged with potential. It was time to showcase that change could and should stem from collaboration instead of confrontation. Tyler spent the early hours transforming the barn, a warm and inviting space ready to host a dialogue. He fluffed hay bales into seats and brought in old photographs, showcasing the ranch's history alongside images of modern sustainable practices. As he decorated, he could feel the vibrations of a legacy, one that had challenged the elements yet thrived in the end. If he could provide a bridge to that tradition, perhaps the ranchers would feel less threatened by his vision. As the ranchers began arriving, crowds mingled, caught in the blend of apprehension and curiosity. Tyler noticed the familiar faces that held stories woven into the fabric of the land, each of them guardians of a heritage that he admired. When he stood before them, a wave of accountability washed over him. He wasn't just representing change, he was becoming a steward of their shared history. "Thank you all for coming," he began, his voice steady yet passionate. "I know many of you have concerns about the direction I've proposed for the ranch. I understand the doubts. But more than anything, I want to hear from you, your thoughts, your fears, your aspirations." A warm wave of conversation swept through the barn as ranchers began to voice their opinions, often echoing Tyler's own hesitations. Their questions circled back to soil health, long-term viability, and the churn of market fluctuations. With each inquiry, Tyler found not opposition, but rather a pathway to build upon, a valuable exchange where he articulated insights gained from research and conversations with experts. As they shared stories of hardship, their commitment to the land shone through, creating a palpable connection. The mention of legacy resonated deeply, echoing Jack's words about being stewards of the earth. This realization sparked something newfound within him. Rather than frame this moment strictly as a challenge, he could mold it into an opportunity for relationship building. Soon, moments of levity filled the space, laughter breaking out amidst shared stories, reminding them all of what they valued above all else. A bond of trust began to weave itself through the air, an understanding that, while they each clung to different beliefs, they could unite in their desire to see the ranch flourish. "Perhaps we can start small," one seasoned rancher suggested tentatively, "implementing changes gradually and monitoring how they impact our yields." "Yes, that's precisely what I envision," Tyler responded, excitement surging through him, each idea sparking more vision. They kicked ideas back and forth, integrating traditional methods with new insights, fueling an energy that ignited hope. By the meeting's end, they had outlined collaborative pilot projects, initiatives that respected the land's history while exploring ecological innovations. They had transformed a room filled with skepticism into a collective of dynamic thinkers eager to navigate forward together. Tyler felt grounded in his purpose. He understood that change was not solely about practices. It represented the evolution of a community united in its legacy. Standing at the barn door later, watching ranchers disperse, Tyler could see the promise in their smiles. They had taken tentative steps toward a shared future, and within him beat a heart swelling with newfound confidence. The fears that had previously clouded his mind receded. A deep-seated belief anchored him now. He knew the journey ahead wouldn't be free of challenges. As conversations turned into actions, he would have to navigate along the rocky pathway of transformation. Yet, in being transparent, collaborative, and fostering trust, he had opened the doorway to potentially monumental changes. Tyler turned toward the horizon, watching the sun climb higher, symbolizing the dawn of his greatest achievement yet. A personal transformation from a reluctant heir into a committed leader poised to embrace his future and uphold the legacy of the land he loved. It was a defining moment, the beginning of a new chapter, not just for him, but for everyone united in their love for the ranch. Tyler stood tall because he had chosen vulnerability over silence and collaboration over fear. What lay ahead, he did not know, but he was ready to face it, emboldened by community and empowered to forge a path that truly honored his heritage. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Let's discuss together. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Tyler stood tall because he had chosen vulnerability over silence and collaboration over fear. What lay ahead, he did not know, but he was ready to face it, emboldened by community and empowered to forge a path that truly honored his heritage.